NASCAR is dropping the hammer down on a lot of drivers, and they're also not dropping the hammer down on some drivers. Honestly, I find this incredibly weird, and I have no idea why NASCAR has kind of done such a 180 on a lot of their policies. So today we're going to look into the penalties that NASCAR's issued recently, especially the big one on Michael McDowell, and then the seemingly non-penalties that they issued on JGR. But more on all that right after this. As we race towards the NASCAR playoffs, there's no time to waste when it comes to getting your food made. That is where Factor comes in. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Factor helps make it possible for you to achieve your daily goals through nutritious and purposeful eating, with offers of keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, and even vegan options. In a wellness market full of unrealistic diet plans, Factor is a welcomed and new approach to prepared food with premium ingredients with integrity. Here, I'm having some Italian sausage and lentils between running 15 miles for a marathon training session and going live on my YouTube channel. To get your Factor order, head to go.factor75.com/iceberg120 and use code iceberg120 to get $120 off your order. Again, head to go.factor75.com/iceberg120 and use code iceberg120 to get $120 off. Now, back to the show. So to start off with, let's look at what has been the big news for the last couple days, and that is the JGR drama. The fact that Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch, the guys who initially finished 1-2 in the race, DQ'd because of basically having tape on the car where it wasn't supposed to be. And because of this, Denny Hamlin, of course, was the first driver to have his win disqualified since, I believe, 1960, so 62 years. And then Kyle Busch, the man who has been the most dramatic driver of the summer, well, he loses a second place finish and important playoff seeding because of it. Well, NASCAR, in a very strange way, issued a non-penalty. They said there was no penalty, nothing too egregious. They said this stuff on Sunday, but let's be honest, we all accepted and were expecting that they were going to be penalized further. But they said, as NASCAR said, that the disqualification was pretty much seen as penalty enough. I mean, Denny Hamlin lost nearly 50 points. Kyle Busch lost a stage win. So both of them lost really, really important playoff points that they may not get back in the next 5 weeks. And what I think about this is, one, I think they should have been penalized. I don't think the disqualification is enough. You need to set an example that any kind of messing with the car bodies should be penalized. It shouldn't just be a penalty of bad positioning at the end of the race. It should be the fact that, hey, you screwed with this, you're going to have to feel the brunt of NASCAR, even if it's just an L1. It should be something that long-term would hurt a little more than this. But it sets the precedent that getting caught in post-race inspection is probably the best thing you can have happen to you because nothing further will happen. Whereas if you go to the R&D center, like a certain driver we'll talk about later, well, then you're screwed. Next up, we have an entire team that has been penalized. Erik Jones and Ty Dillon's penalty was an L1. They messed with the rocker arms of their cars, and both were penalized 35 driver and owner points. Now, while Ty Dillon is 30th in points and his playoff chances, if they weren't already, are pretty much certainly dashed now, the real big loser on this is Erik Jones. Jones has been bounced from 17th in points, a tie for 17th, I might add, to 19th in the point standings. And what this does, in my opinion, is it makes it more difficult to beat the people he's around for points in a certain way. No, he is not going to point his way into the playoffs. That ship sailed a long time ago this summer. But if there are more than 17 winners, he will be right in the thick of the guys who are probably going to be trying to get ahead of one of the winners who will be eliminated from the playoffs and will not have eligibility because they're too low in points. Now, those 35 driver points might just end his chance of making it because, let's be real, if somebody like Kevin Harvick gets a win, and then Martin Truex Jr., and then let's say, Austin Dillon, well, it's going to be harder to beat Dillon now when you're 35 points in the hole compared to the way you were before. Plus, the Pett GMS team and the 43 team overall just are not consistent enough at the moment to just straight up beat RCR, even if RCR is relatively weak with a driver like Dillon. So what this really does is it hurts Pett GMS's chances of getting any playoff seeding whatsoever, let alone actually kind of advancing their way up through that and getting maybe tiebreakers over different people. So I'm really surprised this one went under the radar so much. And then, of course, you have the big penalty, that of Michael McDowell. Now, I want to say right now, I've made a video this year on McDowell and how I think, and I still think this even with the penalty, he is the most underrated driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. But unfortunately, a great underdog story does not stop one from getting caught cheating. And McDowell, while doing really well, while having a career season, is probably not going to be remembered for that. Earlier this week, he had put a tweet out there saying he was 1 point out of the top 20. 1 point out of the playoff picture. Well, now he's 101 points out. Recently, he's been docked 100 driver and owner points for messing and tampering with the next-gen body. He was randomly selected to go through the R&D center. But this 100-point penalty does exactly the same thing that Jones's 35-point penalty did on a much grander scale. You see, McDowell being in the top 20 in points was impressive in and of itself, but it also was something that could really advance him into the playoffs. If he got a win at, say, the Indy Road Course or Watkins Glen or Daytona, well, then McDowell would be in a good position to beat other drivers with a win and have a bit of a buffer between him and whoever might get eliminated as a 17th winner. But with finishing 26th in the points, if he does get a win, he almost surely is going to be the lowest driver in points for that kind of metric. And because of that, if it goes over 16 winners, McDowell would have no shot whatsoever of making the playoffs unless he won 2 of the next 5 races. Remember, this is a man who has won 1 race since getting to Cup in 2008. So unfortunately for McDowell, I think this takes him out of a real shot of making the playoffs. Because I'll be real, I think McDowell, with the speed he has at road courses and how good he is at drafting, has a realistic shot of getting a win, has a realistic shot still of making the playoffs. But it is also very realistic that we get 3 new winners in the next 5 weeks, and then it's all null and void unless it's like Corey LaJoie or AJ Allmendinger getting a win. Then McDowell can feel safe. But at the moment, his amazing underdog season, a very almost comeback-like season, has kind of been nuked. And it's really sad to see. But at the same time, this is the same precedent they set with the penalty with Brad Keselowski earlier in the year. So nothing really too out of the ordinary for this new NASCAR standard. Now with that, I'm going to pass it on to you. Do you think these penalties or non-penalties were fair, foul? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments down below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video. Share this video and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Now, all my channel members, thank you so much for your support. And to all of you watching as well, be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly podcast tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Black Flags Matters channel. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about this as well as a ton of other topics. So until then, have a good one.